So yesterday we explained the secondary mitzvah of Peru, what we call shevet, the mitzvah that even once a couple have a boy and a girl, there is a mitzvah to continue to have children in order to populate the world. The question is there a limit to this? Meaning, once, let's say, a person has a boy and a girl, fine, so they fulfilled Peru, and then they have a further boy and a girl. They've got 4 children now, 2 boys and 2 girls. Have they fulfilled the mitzvah of shevet, and therefore they can now stop having children? Or is it necessary to continue to have children and however many it is, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, without any limit? What is the framework of this mitzvah? So clearly, if there is any physical or mental illness involved, clearly then there's no obligation to continue. Even with pro that it's that can, if there's a physical or mental illness, it overrides the obligation of pro. So clearly, we're not talking about such a case. In a case where the couple are healthy, there are no physical or mental illnesses involved. Is there a limit to the mitzvah of of continuing to have children? Is there a limit to this? So there are teshuvot about this in the contemporary poskim. And note that this is only really found, these questions, in the last 50, 100 years. So Rosna, one of the great poskim of Israel of the last century, he was asked from someone who was 44 years old, had 8 children, and his wife wanted to continue to have more children. And he felt that it would perhaps be too difficult to bring them up if he was to have a ninth. What's the correct? Should he stop now or should he continue? Rav Vosner wrote that one should continue, even beyond. There's no limit to this mitzvah. Another poskim wrote similarly. Rav Yosef Massas was asked about from someone who had 4 children already, should he continue even though he's not sure whether he has the parnasai, has the livelihood to be able to sustain them, and yet he continued. He writes, one should continue to have children even beyond, and unless there is no of course, there's no physical mental illness, one should continue to have children. That's one approach. And on this view, the mitzvah really continues. As long as a couple are able to bring children into the world and there are no physical or mental caveats, a person should continue to bring, even if it's 5, 6, 7, 8. However, there is a different approach. And that is that finance can be taken into account in order to ascertain whether to continue this mitzvah or not. The Aruch HaShulchan of Ben Venisti, from 100 plus years ago, writes that this mitzvah is if he has the ability to be able to sustain them and to provide for them. Implication being, if he doesn't have the ability to sustain them, then this mitzvah one doesn't need to continue to bring children into the world. Rav Henkin, the Bnei Banim, who died a few years ago, he writes something very interesting. He argues that the mitzvah of Shevet does have a limit. And he says, just like the mitzvah d'oraita of Peru Urbu is a boy and a girl, it's logical to say that when the Hachamim said to continue to have children for the mitzvah of Shevet, that's an additional boy and girl. Once a person has 2 boys and 2 girls, they have fulfilled the mitzvah of Shevet of continuing to populate the world. And then there's no obligation to continue. Rav Eliezer Melamed says something very interesting. He says, look, this question only really arose in the last century or so. And the reason being is that in times gone by, this question never really arose because children often died, and it wasn't common that women were able to have to have a child and then fall pregnant within the year. It would take a couple of years at least until they were able to have children again. And the circumstances have changed. And nowadays, this question has become far more common, and it's possible to have many children. But it wasn't a common thing in the olden days for people to have more than 5 or 6 children. And indeed, it seems to be that that was correct, that it wasn't common for people to have so many children simply because of the circumstances involved. And therefore, he wants to take that approach that the mitzvah of Peru is a boy and a girl. The mitzvah of Shevet is to have a further couple of children. Once one has 4 or 5 children, then if they have the ability and they want to continue to bring children, and they have the parnasa and the tranquility of mind to bring up kids properly, then one should continue. But really, once one has 4 or 5 children, they have fulfilled this mitzvah. And I would add that yes, the Torah tells us, the Hachamim tell us to have children, but it's not just about the quantity, it's about the quality as well. Meaning, if one is going to have 8, 9 children and won't be able to give them the ability to be able to have to bring them up properly and to give them the attention necessary and to teach them properly and to educate them as is required when a person brings a soul into this world. It's not just about the quantity, it's also about the quality. And only parents themselves can make that decision about what is appropriate. And indeed, Rav Nachman Rabinovich says the same thing. There is no set framework, no set amount that someone can say is correct for a person to bring, and it's dependent upon each couple, what taking into account mentally, taking into account their livelihoods, taking into account the ability they have to give attention to their children, and so on and so forth, whether one should continue to have kids beyond 4. So, in conclusion, yes, there's a mitzvah to have a boy and a girl from the Torah. There is a mitzvah to continue to have a couple more children at least from the Hachamim. Beyond that, once one has 4 or 5 children, should one continue to have children? If they have the ability to do so and everything and to give the attention, yes. If not, there are opinions, as I've quoted, which would say that one has fulfilled the mitzvah and one doesn't need to continue to bring children into the world.